Everyone thinks Asia has a gambling addiction problem. Macau earned 3.5 times the entire Las Vegas Strip last year. The Philippines has 32 million registered online gambling accounts. Japan runs a parallel gambling economy through pachinko parlors worth over $150 billion a year, all technically classified as entertainment. But if you look closely at those numbers, something doesn't add up. Macau's casinos were processing far more money than Chinese citizens are legally allowed to move out of the country. Those baccarat tables aren't just casinos, they are financial escape routes. And the deeper you go, the more the story shifts from people who can't stop gambling to money that can't stop moving. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what the problem is, why it keeps getting worse, and what that tells you about how money actually works in Asia. That's exactly why I created this channel. I've been running businesses here for 26 years. I see what's happening from the inside. If you want a real picture of what's going on, subscribe. In 2013, Macau generating $45 billion in casino revenue. A strip of land with 700,000 residents was pulling in 7 times the entire Las Vegas Strip, making it the single largest gambling market in the history of the world. And over 70% of the people feeding that machine were coming from one country right across the border where gambling is completely, officially, and ambiguously illegal: China. Obviously, China has a gambling problem that the government has been trying to solve for decades. Addiction rates run between 2.5% and 4% of the adult population, 2 to 3 times higher than Europe or the United States. That's 55 million gamblers, so Beijing knows the problem is massive. And they're not alone. South Korea tried to contain the same pressure with a completely different strategy. They allowed one casino for their citizens, one in the entire country. Deliberately buried in a mountain town 3 hours from Seoul, they used to run on the coal mining and had nothing left. 25 years later, the town is lined up with pawn shops. The illegal gambling market in Korea is 5 times bigger than the legal one. Indonesia went even further. Gambling carries up to 6 years in prison. It's forbidden by law and considered a sin by religion in the most populous Muslim country on earth. The government set up a task force, took down millions of websites, froze thousands of bank accounts. Still, in 2024, 3.7 million Indonesians placed over $20 billion in illegal bets, in a country where the average monthly wage is $250. Every government in this region has tried something different to contain gambling, and in every case, the money flowing through the systems is far bigger than what addictions or entertainment can explain. Something else is going on here. There's a financial system that most people have never heard of, and the numbers only make sense once you understand how it works. There's a number in this story that should bother you. The Chinese government caps how much money its citizens can move out of the country at $50,000 per year. That rule has been in place for over 20 years, and Beijing enforces it aggressively, especially since January 2026, when they tightened verification on every transfer above $1,000 and extended record keeping from 5 years to 10. Now remember, over 70% of Macau's casino visitors come from mainland China. At the peak, Macau's VIP rooms alone were generating tens of billions of dollars a year. If those visitors were spending within their legal annual quota, Macau's total casino revenue should have been a modest number, a few billion at most. Now, you start to understand. The gambling numbers in Asia don't measure how much people gamble. They measure how much money is trying to get out. That changes everything about this story. Because once you look at Macau through that lens, the baccarat tables and the VIP rooms stop being an entertainment industry and start being one of the largest unofficial money pipelines on the planet. In 2015 alone, an estimated $676 billion left China through unofficial channels despite the $50,000 cap. Somebody built the infrastructure to make all of this possible. A network of middlemen who could take money in China, deliver credit in Macau, collect debts back on the mainland, and make sure none of it ever officially crossed the border. They operated in plain sight for over a decade. Some of them were listed on the stock exchange, and almost nobody outside of Asia had any idea they existed. They were called junket operators, and the way they work was elegantly simple. If you're still here, you already know that this isn't a normal gambling video. This channel covers what's actually happening with money in Asia from someone who has been on the ground for 26 years. Subscribe if that sounds interesting to you. But let's get back on track. Say you're a wealthy businessman in Shenzhen and you want to move a few $1 million out of mainland China. You can't wire it. The government tracks every transfer. You can't carry it. Custom checks at the border catch anything above the limit. You can invest it abroad. The approval takes months and Beijing can reject them. So you call a junket agent. Someone in your network introduces you the way someone might introduce you to a private banker in Geneva, except this banker operates out of a VIP room in a Macau casino. The agent extends you a line of credit in Macau, millions of dollars in chips, without you ever moving a single yuan across the border. You fly to Macau, you play baccarat for a weekend, you win some, you lose some, and at the end of the trip, you cash out your remaining chips in Hong Kong dollars or wire your winnings to an overseas account. The debt you owe, you settle it back in China, in yuan, through the junket's mainland network. Cash handoffs, transfers between domestic accounts, payment routed through shell companies, up to you. The money never officially crosses the border. On paper, you gamble. In reality, you converted restricted Chinese yuan into freely usable foreign currency, and the casino was your exchange counter. At their peak in 2013, there were 235 licensed junket operators in Macau, and they control over 60% of the city's entire casino revenue. The biggest one, a company called Sun City, held roughly 40% of the junket market on its own. Sun City was publicly trading, ran VIP rooms inside the largest casinos on earth, had thousands of agents recruiting players across mainland China, and its founder, Alvin Chou, was one of the most recognized faces in Asian gambling. The operation sat in a strange space between legal business and underground finance. It was close enough to the rules to survive, profitable enough that nobody asked too many questions, and wired deeply enough into the mainland that it could collect debts across an entire country where gambling debts have no legal standing. For more than a decade, this machine ran without interruption, processing billions of dollars a year that Beijing couldn't see and couldn't stop. And then, in November 2021, Beijing decided it had seen enough. That month, Chinese prosecutors in Wenzhou issued an arrest warrant for Alvin Chou. Within days, Macau police picked him up. The man who had built Sun City into the largest junket operation in Asian gambling history, who generated an estimated $11 billion in VIP revenue in Macau's best year alone, was charged with 289 counts of fraud, money laundering, illegal gambling, and running a criminal syndicate. The trial lasted over a year. Chou denied everything. In January 2023, the court sentenced him to 18 years in prison. He appealed, lost. Appealed again, all the way to Macau's highest court, lost again in July 2024. He even wrote a personal letter to Xi Jinping asking for leniency. Guess what? It changed nothing. The court ordered Chou and its associates to pay back 24.87 billion Hong Kong dollars to the Macau government, roughly 3.2 billion US dollars in illegal gains accumulated over 8 years of operation. Chou wasn't alone. Li Chan, who ran the second largest junket, Tak Chun, got 14 years. Ji Xiaobao of Hongchang was declared a criminal syndicate later. One by one, the operators who had built Macau's VIP economy were taken apart. The numbers tell the rest of the story. In 2013, Macau had 235 licensed junket operators. By 2023, there were 36. Today, 23 remain active, and the government has capped the total at 50. The new rules ban junkets from extending credit to players, limit their commission, and tie each operator to a single casino. The VIP room model that made Macau the largest gambling market on earth is effectively dead. Macau's total revenue collapsed by 80% during the combined shock of the crackdown and the pandemic. By 2025, it had recovered to $30.84 billion, a record since the pre-pandemic era, but the composition is completely different. The money now comes from what the industry calls premium mass, wealthier tourists gambling at higher-end public tables, not from VIP rooms run by junket operators funneling mainland capital through the back door. The crackdown worked, at least in Macau. The government takes 86.5% of every dollar Macau's casinos earn in tax. The only problem is that the money didn't stop moving, it just found somewhere else to go. The Philippines had been building its own gambling infrastructure for years, originally at the encouragement of Manila, which showed Chinese-run offshore gaming operators as a way to attract investment and strengthen ties with Beijing. When the government banned offshore operators in November 2024, under pressure from both Beijing and its own Senate,
effective today, all POGOs are banned.
It didn't matter. The accounts kept growing. Cambodia tells the same story in a darker register. Sihanoukville used to be a quiet beach town. Around 2016, Chinese money poured in, casinos went up on every block, and when Cambodia's government started pulling licenses, the buildings didn't empty out. They were repurposed. Today, an estimated 150,000 people work inside former casino compounds, running fraud operations, pig butchering scams, fake investment platforms, crypto schemes. Harvard's Asia Center in the UN estimates this operation generate between $12 and $19 billion a year, potentially 60% of Cambodia's entire GDP. Workers are recruited across Southeast Asia with promises of legitimate jobs, then trapped inside, their passport confiscated, forced to scam strangers online under threat of violence. A former small-town mayor in the Philippines was sentenced to life in prison for trafficking workers into one of these compounds. Thailand blocked nearly 184,000 gambling URLs between October 2025 and January 2026, 4 times more than the year before. Vietnam dismantled a laundering ring that had processed $354 million through 125 bank accounts across 16 different banks. The pattern is always the same. One country cracks down. The operators relocate to the next jurisdiction with weaker enforcement or cheaper officials, and the money keeps moving. China tightened Macau, so the operation spread to the Philippines and Cambodia. The Philippines banned pogos, so they shifted to Myanmar and Laos. The gambling industry in Asia doesn't shrink when you squeeze it. It migrates, and each time it moves, it gets harder to trace and more dangerous for the people caught inside. The gambling was always a symptom. The cause is that money doesn't circulate freely in this part of the world. And when it can't move through legitimate channels, it finds parallel ones. Always. The junket operators understood this better than anyone. They didn't invent the demand. They just built the best infrastructure to serve it. Most people watching this will never set foot in a Macau casino. But if you're building a business that touches Asia, importing from China, selling into Southeast Asia, hiring across borders, you're operating inside the same financial architecture that created all of this. The rules around how money enters and exits these countries affect you directly, whether you know it or not. At Statrys, we help entrepreneurs navigate exactly that, setting up and operating in Hong Kong, Singapore, moving money across Asia through regulated, transparent channels. The legal way, the boring way, the way that actually works long term. If that's useful to you, left a link in the description. If you've done business in this part of the world, drop your experience in the comments. See you in the next video.